folks, that intro is getting more and more glitchy, Wendy. Have you noticed that?
It is. Yeah, it's really jumpy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Hello,
Greetings, everyone.
Hello. See who do we have here?
Look who's here just in the nick of time. I mean, his timing's incredible, isn't it? Brian's
the star has arrived.
Little bottom, which I'm sure everyone's missed more than anything. The Brian Show.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 with our special guest analyst Mychael McNeely here. And
hey everybody,
you've had a good Christmas, Mychael. I'm telling you that. I'm not asking.
I always say that I don't really celebrate Christmas, but I always end up having an enjoyable day anyway, and I did have an enjoyable day.
Yeah, me too. I tend to not really. I don't really like to be told what to do by society. To be honest, so I've always got this. Yeah, a bit of a, I'm a bit narky about it. That's what the way it goes. So who have we got in the house?
Humbug. We got Jeremy the Ape. Bar Humbug. Hey Jeremy, and we got lovely Deb, and we got Michael's also in the chat as well as been on screen, which I find quite impressive. Well done, Mychael. We've got Claire here, and we got Dave. Hey Dave, and I think we missed Dave last time, didn't we? We got Bernie V. Hey Bernie, and Bernie Brannick, 2 Bernies. Hey Bernie, who lives over there, and Mike Weinberg, Philip. Hey Philip from New York. And anyone else, do say hello in the chat if you're here.
Was that you
Michael's
doing a New York accent then? Was it
New York? Yeah, I'll try my best, but it's not. I'm sure it's not that great. Philip, are you having your lunch? Because Philip's usually having the lunch. We've got Jesus Online 187, and we've got Tim Barford. Evening all, evening Tim.
Hey Tim.
Nice to see everyone.
Jesus Online. You probably wouldn't need a computer, would he? No.
This is Jesus Online says, "Hey Mychael, this is Holly on Luke's weird account name."
Oh, hi. That's great.
So that's Holly.
Hi Holly.
Hi Holly. Oh, we've got Anne just arrived as well. Hey Anne.
As Philip says, Yanks are in the house.
So everyone keeps freezing for me. I think it must be me.
Yeah, we're inundated with North Americans. What's going on? It must be your influence, Mychael, I think.
It very well could be.
Yeah, it could well be, couldn't it? Right, so I suppose we better get on with this instead of just chitter-chatting. So we have a set of slides. We were about halfway through, I think, when we decided to cut it last time, because we're going to try and do this in about an hour, folks. So that's our new regime, because it kind of slipped, didn't it? Until we got So there you go.
Yeah, we've got to rein it in.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
We'll rein it. So here we go. So this is the first one of the new ones, the ones that we haven't shown so far.
I can just start right in there, even though there we go. So it's interestingly, I was re-listening to Wendy's interview with Corey Wren this morning, just the first little bit of it. And Wendy, you mentioned somebody that you had interviewed kind of early on, and I can't think of his name, but someone who raised animals and had like a little farm of their own when they were younger.
John Arwen.
Arwen?
John Arwen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. So I got to go back and listen. Go back and listen to that one. I'm playing catch up with your podcast. But I was in a similar. I mean, I didn't exactly live on a farm, but we did raise many animals for our use, more or less. This goat, Prima Ballerina, she was, as far as I remember, she was not. We just bought 2 goats, small goats, for kind of like pets, I guess, at the time. It's not a word I would really use anymore, but at the time, that seems like that's what they were. And then that picture on the right there, the smaller picture, is me at the Del Mar Fair, which is North County, San Diego fair where, all kinds of stuff goes on there, garden shows and things like that. But a big part of it is, traditionally, like as I would guess most fairs started, animal agriculture, outlets. And so, hi, Jennifer. Good to see you here. And so this is my pig, Wilbur. I believe that's Wilbur. I'm pretty sure that's Wilbur. Wilbur was a runt, and then Charlotte was my other pig when I was in 4-H. Just for all, y'all who are not from the United States, we have a thing called 4-H here, and it basically teaches kids how to domesticate animals, for lack of a better term. These pigs were, for me, I didn't really understand the whole thing. I was 8 years old there with my little tie on and hat. And I didn't really understand what was going on, but those pigs were destined for slaughter. And I really didn't understand that until it was too late. But so that's just, that's what that slide is all about.
You're being asked if you were a 4-H by Deb.
I was a 4-H, yes, Deb. You're in Arizona, if I remember right. Yeah, I was in 4-H. I never went on to Future Farmers of America, but I was in 4-H for quite a while. I had chickens. And then on the non-animal side, I took a photography course in 4-H, which was pretty cool.
And so what does 4-H mean again, Mychael?
Head, heart, hands, and health. And it's the like 4-leaf clover. And each one has an H in it. That's their little symbol. Just from looking at it from the side of my parents and people who wanted their kids to be a part of that, it was a way to teach their children about farming mostly. It was about how to take care of, non-human animals and to use them for, their bodily products and their very bodies themselves. So that's when I joined, my parents were super positive about it, and I was very positive about it. It was a great experience for me to have the pigs up until that last little bit there.
Yeah, you mentioned David Nybert's concept of domestication. It's really interesting because a lot of people kind of laughed at that idea. In fact, David had a lot of trouble getting it through past the publisher. In fact, I think he wanted it as the main title, and they wouldn't go, so he compromised, and it's part of the subtitle. But I can't say desecration very well anymore. I'm so used to saying domestication now, which is quite interesting. Yeah. But of course, when you write that in a comment, you always think, well, what's the kind of point? Because nobody's going to know what you mean, which is one of those things. Do you ripen that idea up, or do you just go with the fact that people are not going to understand it? It's a kind of it's an issue. Jennifer and I was talking about the very same thing in regard to rights violations on TikTok. She was telling me this morning, don't write rights violations on TikTok because nobody knows what you're talking about, which is probably true. But there you go.
Speaking of Jennifer, Jennifer's asking, Mychael, are you an ex-slaughter worker?
Well, I mean, the way the question is asked makes me wonder if you mean, did I work in like a slaughterhouse, which I did not, but I did actually participate in slaughtering animals with my stepdad mostly. One of the last things that happened for me before I became a vegetarian around the age of 18 or so was it was a Christmas Day or the day before Christmas, and we had a goose. This is a little graphic. I won't get too graphic about it, but I just remember being out on our deck, and he caught the goose up, and then he took a real sharp knife and slit her throat, and I just sat there and watched the goose's blood and life drain out of her in a matter of, I don't know, it seemed like forever, but it was maybe a minute or two, and that really, really had an impact on me. Although I had participated in killing quite a few animals, I didn't necessarily kill them myself. I was just there to help with my stepdad, and then I lived in the country, so we had a lot of people around us who who were raising animals for food, and you would often have the butcher would come out, the guy would come out with his gun and shoot the neighbor's pig or shoot we had a bull, Lonesome George, really wonderful individual. And I remember hearing the gunshot go off while for his last day. But so, yeah, I wouldn't say I was a slaughter worker, but I definitely participated in slaughter quite a bit.
Here's a question for you, Mychael, because it's often a claim within the vegan community that speciesism is the first kind of ideology that we get sucked into in a sense. And I don't know if you remember that there's a meme where there's a train scene and there's a white kid with a white mother, and the white kid is reaching out friendly, as it were, to a black guy, and the white mother doesn't look very pleased about it. But so it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know what she would have subsequently said to the child, if anything, but there is this kind of idea that speciesism is the first thing that we learn. Do you kind of buy into that? It's a foundational ideological position that kind of sets us up to have a whole bunch of prejudices eventually?
I don't think it would be that simple for me to answer that question, because I think it might be really different for different people. But and having just and being right in the thick of reading Nybert, I think I'm in a mindset right now where all these oppressions kind of exist together and and not in a vacuum, and not really even in an order so much. But for me personally, gosh, I'll have to think on that. I would say that for me, and just time wise, it probably speciesism came first, and then all the other isms came, pretty quick as you go along in life here, at least in America. That's all the other isms are things that you learn pretty early.
It's like a domino effect, maybe.
What I just found strange is that very often we say that if people could get to know other animals, could get to know pigs or cows or chickens, and you would see that they're real persons with personalities and feelings, etc., would think differently about them.
Yeah.
So, what is it? Because obviously, as a child, you could get attached to those individuals.
Yep.
What's the frame? How we end up having a relationship with these other animals, and then accepting at the same times that these are raised for us to do whatever we want with them. How do you negotiate this as a child?
So I think I just right now thought about Linda Coram-Bocas. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right, but talking about Peppa the Pig and how we have this schism between, kids being really attached to these particular individual characters, or, they could be a cartoon character, or it could be a real animal. And then also eating that, going like right after watching a movie about a pig that they think is a really interesting character, going and, getting some ham sandwich or whatever. And I think for me, if I remember, it's been a long time since I was a little kid that age, but I do remember having to be convinced by my parents that this was just the way that things are, and that, this is what we have to do in order to survive as humans. So it's like, it's funny too, because I know I hear a lot of people in the vegan movement saying that kids given the opportunity to love animals and be around animals and not, and if they were right away taught, that animals weren't to use, that they would automatically, the kids understand that from when they're very little. And I don't know, it's hard for me to remember exactly, but I don't necessarily think that I was that way. I think that I did love individuals. I did dearly love those pigs, and it felt like a great betrayal to me. To this day, I think about it with sadness that I let those pigs go and be slaughtered. But I also, was around a lot of animals who were being killed and didn't really feel much for them at all. And it was something that I kind of thought about a lot later. And now that I've been vegan for some time, I think it's built in me this feeling of this sort of empathy and compassion toward non-human animals, and even humans, really, for that matter, to some extent. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really hard question because I don't think I know any children who have been raised in a society that's not completely speciesist. So it's really hard to sort of tease that out. Like how much of it is just that kids are human beings that don't, that have some levels of empathy. Like maybe there's a continuum of empathy, and some kids have less than others. Some adults have less than others. And how much of it is just that we're like swimming around in this ocean of speciesism. And it's just what we're so used to it that it's hard to look outside of it. It's hard to like get out of that ocean and see a different way of looking at other animals in particular. Does that help at all, or?
Yes. Because, I'm especially interested in kids that have grown up with these animals, because most kids in cities they have a very limited notion of how other animals are. Mostly they have it through books or cartoons or whatever. But I'm fascinated by this relationship between kids and other animals, real other animals.
I missed a comment. I saw Jeremy commented, and I missed it. It popped up on my screen. Did you see that one?
Was it about euphemisms?
I thought it was something about. I barely saw it, but I thought it was something to do with him being also. I tend to think of slaughter as euphemism. No, there was another one. I'm sorry. There was another one.
This one?
Okay. Or this one.
I tend to talk about being. Oops, lost it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer. I do think that if we were to raise a child in a society, I think domestication will be different due to the low frequency and difficulty to visualize. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're going back to domestication here. That's interesting. Yeah, and if we were able to take a child, raise a child, and I don't know, it'd be some like new society that wasn't completely speciesist. It would be hard to tell which came first, the speciesism or the how children develop these because I know, like I said, for me, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but for me, it was really drilled into me since I was a little kid, because I was around other animals, that I had to be taught that those animals were here for us to use. It was not necessarily something that I came into this world thinking or knowing. I had to be taught that, which is true with all kids. But when you actually know the animals, it does seem a little different to me when you know these animals that are ending up on your dinner table, for instance.
Yeah.
I always remember here in the UK years and years ago, the chef Gordon Ramsay, he did a whole project on this with his own children. He was set on trying to get people to connect back to their food, and so I think it was with turkey individuals that he'd brought some turkey individuals into the family and had them grow up with the children, and then the children, so the turkeys or pigs, I can't quite remember, it's a long time ago, but he had them basically
for a while. I remember that.
Okay, but I know he was trying to get the children to really get to know these other animals, and also to to raise them as part of the family, with the view to they are going to be killed. There was still that separation, and I think by the end they had grown very kind of attached and found it very difficult. But he was doing that in a way to get people to connect back, and he was saying it's better that people are so disconnected from what they're eating. And I remember at the time thinking, I can kind of see where he's coming from, because people are so disconnected. They go to the supermarket and they buy a piece of someone's body wrapped in cellophane, and they have no connection that was an individual. But at the other end of that spectrum, it's very easy to get socialized into getting to know these individuals and still finding it acceptable to use and kill them. So I feel like wherever we're in that speciesist society, that whole concept of, if all houses had glass windows, no one, everyone will be vegetarian, as Paul McCartney said. I just don't believe that it's true, because people are just desensitized and normalized into whatever we do. You just become normalized into your environment, don't you? Whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
As a child.
Hey, Roger, could we switch to the next slide?
Yes, indeed.
I just want to make sure we get to this part about that we talked about beforehand. Okay, so this is my first son, Jamie, and he is. I just kind of put up a slide of him with the goats to kind of go with the slide of me with the goat. So Jamie, and part of what we're hoping to talk about today has to do with grief, and with connections with other human beings and connections with other non-human animals. And so I guess we have started off on a really good foot talking about that. Just to give everybody here, not everybody here knows me, so I'll just say, briefly that Jamie was born in 1996. When he was 5 years and 11 months old, he was killed in a car accident. And that was the beginning of me learning about what grief is. I had experienced grief in my life, but nothing like that. Jamie was a lifelong vegetarian. He used to say things like, "I don't eat my friends," when he was like 5 years old. And so I just wanted to introduce Jamie, and then we can go along to the next slide, I think. There's Jamie with some more goats. And then this young lady on the bottom right is someone I don't know personally, but she is at a place called Selah Carefarm, which is in Arizona. I think Deb, maybe Deb knows about this. So after many years after Jamie died, and I went through a whole bunch of just a process with that grief over many years, still dealing with it to some extent, but obviously it's quieted down quite a bit. But I, maybe about a year ago, was watching a program on, it was a series called The Me You Can't See. If anybody's heard of that, it was put together by, or I don't know if it was directed by, but anyway, the main people that I believe put it out were Oprah Winfrey and Prince Charles. Am I saying that right? I get the royalty mixed up. Sorry, guys. The guy that moved over here. Who's the prince that moved over to America and married an American actress? Harry, thank you.
Harry?
Prince Harry. Sorry.
They all look the same. Big ears, small brain, inbred.
Anyway, so
Roger's a real fan of the royal family, aren't you, Roger? Had the Queen on his show last Christmas.
I'm a royalist. I did, yes, I did.
Okay. Well, speaking as an American, I don't get the whole thing at all, so I do forget who's who. So anyway, they had this series. It was I think it was a 6-part miniseries, and it was about mental health issues in general. But one of the issues that they talked about mostly, and I believe it was the 5th episode, was grief and losing a child in particular, that type of grief. And they went to visit this place in Arizona called Selah Carefarm, and there's a Dr. Joanne Cacciatore is the founder of this place. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe I never heard of this before, because I was really deeply involved with a lot of grief work with other people and groups and things like that. And that kind of ties into this whole theme of community. Definitely there's a grief community. So anyway, I'm thinking, I wonder if this place has a vegan theme to it. It just it's a sanctuary where, traumatized other non-human animals come to live. And I think there's maybe 50 something non-humans living there right now, something like that. And then there's people, human beings, who mostly have lost their child, who are bereaved parents, or people who have lost their brothers and sisters. But anyway, a lot of people that go there have lost either young children or people far before their time anyway. And so anyway, I just started wondering about it. And I was talking to my friend about it. And anyway, she ended up writing to Joanne. This is Breeze Harper. Y'all will be familiar with her, but she ended up writing to Joanne first. And then Joanne wrote back to us. And sure enough, it's a vegan facility. And I was just like so excited that I ended up planning to go out there. And like after I watched the show, within like a couple months, I was at Selah Carefarm. So this picture on the bottom lower is one of the humans with one of the non-human persons who live at Selah. And the way they operate is that all the non-humans there are completely free to do whatever they want. You're not supposed to go up to them. It's more like a mutual. If these animals want to go up to a human, then that's fine. But what she found, and I don't want to tell too much about Joanne. I think she'd actually be a great guest on the show too. But she's just an amazing individual, and she has set this whole place up to be just an amazing place where humans can have like a grief sort of community with other humans and with non-humans. And so because she found that a lot of these non-humans have experienced a sort of traumatic grief that is very similar to the traumatic grief that many humans have gone through, who have in particular lost one of their children, and oftentimes suddenly and violently, that there was a connection made there between humans and non-humans that was very special. And so that's what the farm is about. I'm actually planning on going back out there with my family in March. Really, really excited about it. Hopefully COVID will settle down and not have any new variants by then. But that's the plan anyway. And so I just wanted to bring that up as just this amazing place, and it kind of brings together the whole concept of like humans and non-humans having like a community around a sort of something that they have all gone through.
What's kind of effect does that have on the people who visit there, Mychael? What did you see and experience of the people who were visiting and making those connections with these other animals that had been through traumatic experiences themselves? Did you experience any kind of transformations in people, or see these kind of these moments of real understanding between humans and the other animals?
Yeah, mostly from watching that show, because when I was there weren't too many people there, but I do know that there are many people who have made a connection with animals there that has nudged them toward veganism, and also not, just having a different mindset about other animals. I don't think obviously it happens with every person that goes there, but I think that there is a beautiful connection that does open people up on some level to look to see other animals in a different light, and see that they're going through very similar things as to what we go through. So yeah, it's I know specifically there are several people who have gone there and became vegan after going there. I don't know what the ratio is or anything, but when I was there, it did seem like a real I know a lot of people here in the audience and also on the stage here are real fans of sanctuaries, and it allowed me to see a side to sanctuaries that really put something amazing into perspective for me. I know that sanctuaries are like this in general for a lot of people, that they do go and have a connection, and it kind of goes back to what Nella was talking about earlier, that it's not necessarily going to make somebody vegan or anti-speciesist in one shot, but it plants a seed and opens up doors to people's hearts, I think, that is kind of hard to do in any other way other than actually being in the presence of these other individuals.
I have another question as well, unless anyone else wants to jump in. But I've got a question around, and it does kind of involve sanctuaries generally, as well as the place that you're telling us about. But I suppose with survivors who are in sanctuaries or who are being cared for by humans, although they are being cared for in a way, they're still captive, in a sense that obviously we don't have this perfect vegan world where other animals are free and liberated. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts on how, when we are in these situations, how we can ensure that we're not merely finding a different use for other animals for human gain with just better welfare and conditions, because obviously we're not welfareists. We're not about welfareism in terms of we're using other animals as long as they're treated well. We're not really about that. We're about liberation. So I just wonder if you have any thoughts on that, because I think sometimes you could almost look at, and I know some sanctuaries have had ways of kind of raising funds in which they might use other animals in ways that some of us might look at and say, actually, that's not great. You're still using them. It might be like a therapy horse, that's not my term, a therapy horse, therapy dog, that kind of thing. And I just wonder how we might avoid those kind of using situations.
That's a great question. I was just thinking about this morning, and also and when you first started to talk about this, I thought about Justin Van Cleek, I believe is what they still go by, Justin Van Cleek, out in North Carolina with a micro sanctuary, and the way that they look at creating this situation for these chickens that live there that is as close to what they might experience if they were not in captivity at all. But the thing I think about a lot of times too is there's a lot of nuance to it, and there's a lot of continually having to question ourselves, like, what are we doing? I mean, with any kind of sanctuary, there's going to be the tendency to, I mean, even the fact that we're using these sanctuaries to get people to think about other animals in a different way, it's a little close to the edge, I mean, it's like, is that using other animals? Maybe in some way it is, so I don't know. I don't really know the answer overall, but I think that, just to continually question, like your question that you just asked, to continually question and continually look at what are we doing with non-humans that are in our captive spaces, because there's so many. I mean, even our the little Caslow, the little rescued dog that I have here at my home, he doesn't make his own mind up about what he gets to do. He has to live in the house most of the time, and he goes for a walk on a leash and has a collar around his neck. It's definitely not how he would be living if he were a free living animal. And so, I mean, I think just the key is just to continually ask ourselves every day in these situations, is there anything we can do to get closer to providing a setting where these other individuals can live in a way that is as close to them being free and liberated as possible, although that's not going to be 100%. Nowhere. I mean, I remember listening to our Hen House podcast one time, and Marianne mentioned something I thought was really interesting. She was like, in a way, pretty much like every non-human on the whole earth is in captivity in some way. Like we might have this big range, where say like wild horses are living their lives, but they at some point they can't go past a barrier. Like here in San Diego, we have a border wall. I mean, the other animals can't go back and forth the way that they did before that border wall was created and built. So, it's a very good question. I think it's a question that we should all be thinking about all the time.
And also, oftentimes they are trapped in urban spaces, and they have to adapt because everything was created with humans in mind, and most humans don't pay any attention to other animals' needs. And I was thinking just before the show that in reality, most communities are interspecies in the sense that we go out and we encounter other animals. Like I go out and I see pigeons, I see seagulls, cats, and dogs. But it doesn't feel like a community because we don't, as humans, really care about the needs of others. And I think that one of the things that we could do is recognize the already existing communities and stop seeing them as intruders, because we are most of the time we are the intruders, but see them as other individuals that share space with us. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Did we talk about, I can't remember if it was you and I that talked about this, or if we talked about it on the show last time about that, that sort of veganic farm in England that's, the book is called Growing Green. Did I talk to you about that? They had created this space. I don't know exactly where this is in England, and y'all might have an idea about it, but it's a veganic farm where they have created this whole environment where non-human animals that would normally live in that space are invited back in and are able to, thrive in this space alongside the, all the humans that are there and the crops that are being grown for human consumption. And it was such a beautiful, the book itself, the part that almost like in the beginning of the book might've just been the intro for the book. I got tears in my eyes thinking about it, because they had, at least from what they were saying in the book, they had created this space where all these, it was like Eden, it was like the idea of Eden, where all these different individuals live together and work together and have their own lives. I mean, I think about, in my own city, we do have a few species that seem to thrive really well with humans, and some of our hawks are there's several different species of hawks that live here that seem to do very well. Of course, they run into issues when people do things like poison the other animals that they're eating, things like that. Coyotes, we have a lot of coyotes that seem to thrive within human communities. And I just think that we could, and I have, for instance, I have had a gopher in my yard for 2 or 3 years now. And I was so thrown off by that when I first had it happen, because I had not had one since I went vegan. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so we've been living with this gopher for, I don't know, like I said, a few years now. They kind of come and go. I don't know if they hibernate for a while, but it's like the activity kind of goes up and down. But what I've found is that it's really not that bad. They do eat a few things. They pull a few things under ground and, maybe plants that I didn't want them to eat. But overall, I have been very pleasantly surprised at the fact that, we just are living with this gopher. It's not really that big of a deal. And so, yeah, I think about, all the animals that humans just want to just get rid of, just get them out of our space, like pretty much most of them, and I think it's going to take a lot to get people to rethink all this, but
and even the attitude that people tend to, oh sorry Michael, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead, that's all right.
People tend to think about other animals, even the ones that are free living, as ours. Like I know here people will often say it's our wildlife, they're our foxes, our badgers, our squirrels, whoever they might be. It tends to be even the ones that are free living, it tends to be like a possessive mindset over those individuals as well. So I think it's like we have to change that whole way of thinking, don't we? The whole relational aspect of how we are with other animals, in whatever situation
with
they're
conservation in. When we think about conservation, it's almost every time you hear about people doing conservation, trying to save species, it's always for humans. It's always like, we want to save these animals because we need them in our ecosystem, or we want to, even with plants and trees of different ecosystems, we oftentimes it really comes back to, well, I think a lot of times it's when you're trying to convince someone else, another human, that they should take part in this, that it always comes back to, for our children, for human children, for the future, rather than seeing it as like these animals, these other non-human animals have a right to live and have their lives. Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate that nice comment. Also, I did notice that Ronnie had written that he thought that a lot of vegan sanctuaries could do a lot more to promote veganism. And I know the sanctuaries I've been to, I do feel that was a big part of what their focus was. I mean, they're kind of letting people learn on their own, but I think at least the one I went to here in California, they did pass out vegan literature, and they did talk to everybody that was going through as a tour about that. I don't know how common that is in general.
Going back to what you said about the gopher, I think one of the strengths of the rights-based position is if we could create a situation where other animals are seen as fellow rights bearers, I think that would automatically change our relationship with them, in the sense that we would then have to solve our disputes with that fact in mind, rather than just reaching for the gun or the poison as we do now. And I think that is one of the major benefits of the rights-based position myself.
Yeah, I think it is too, and I can also see from the other side, thinking that is a problem with the rights-based position, because now they can't just go out and shoot, whomever they would like to, without having to think this through. And I think that's definitely a tension between rights-based animal rights and the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, and also going back to what you said about the kids in the future, that became a contentious point between early kind of animal rights people and, say, the Save the Whale type initiatives like Greenpeace and stuff, because their entire claims making was about, we need to save the whales because it would be a terrible world if our grandchildren didn't see them. So it was all very much about themselves, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, shall we move on?
Let's move on.
We'll move on.
Yeah, I think that's Joanne. So that's Dr. Joe. If y'all end up finding that program, I highly recommend it. And that was my trip out there several months ago. And many of the residents coming up to us, those goats in particular, and some of the pigs are very friendly there. There's a lot of friendly dogs also. But some of the animals that live there, there was is it a guanaco, or not a guanaco? It's not a llama, but it's in that same family. For some reason, I'm not thinking the name, but
alpaca?
They are alpaca. Yes, alpacas. Thank you. They were really shy, and they just kind of wanted to be with the other alpacas. So that's what they do. They're kind of like free to be their own individual selves and do as they'd like to do.
Push me, pull you. From Dr. Doolittle. What
Dr. Doolittle.
Yeah, there must be a story about the tattoos there, Mychael.
My tattoo? Thank you for asking about that. Yeah, this picture is very small for me, so I'm barely seeing it. But yeah, the Jamie tattoo. Actually, in my background here, I think you can see that picture on the wall of Jamie. That was actually done by my tattoo artist, and I waited until. So actually, I'll tell the story real quick. I was in Scotland. I spent some time in Edinburgh in would have been 98, I believe, 99. I think it was, it might have been a little later than that, 99, more or less. And when I came back, I had a tattoo that I had gotten in the city of Edinburgh. And my son, Jamie, asked me at the time about it. He was just very curious about it. And he said, oh, look, when I grow up, I'm going to get a tattoo of a green tiger. And so I kept that in mind for many, many years. And then when he died when he was almost 6. In the year that he would have been 18, I went and got that tattoo on my arm of him. And then the green tiger. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. The green tiger is kind of worked into the shoulder portion of it. And then there's also some knot work, which is kind of ties it into the other tattoo that I have. And I was, I waited a long time, waited to find the right tattoo artist. And this guy did an amazing, amazing job. That picture on the wall behind me, that you see right above the desk there. That was just a painting that this artist painted as just a practice Jamie before he even did the tattoo. And obviously that blew me away. He gave that to me the first time I went in there to get started on working on the tattoo. Really amazing guy.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
I'll give him a shout out, Alonzo Villa, if you're in San Diego. He's our great tattoo artist.
Drumming up business. That's what I like to see. I see on the opposite arm a shopping list.
What was that movie where the guy had to write down all of his things?
Oh yeah, blimey, what was that called? Yeah.
Something to do with memory.
Memento, isn't it?
Memento, thank you. Yeah, Memento.
Yeah.
Oh, Memento. Yes. To remember.
Yeah, Francione talks about that a lot because he was talking about how this person lived in the moment and that we might assume that other animals might be in a similar situations, but that doesn't preclude them from being rights bearers just because of that, So I do remember that reference, yeah. Right, so we're on to the last one, I think, Mychael, before we talk about building strong communities. Should we go to that?
Sure.
All right. So this is your well-thumbed reading at the moment.
I love that picture so much.
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I've got the book. I've got about 40 pages left. I think I'm gonna try real hard to get at least half that read today. And then just to mention also, Joanne Cacciatore also has a couple of books. This one's Bearing the Unbearable: Love, Loss, and the Heartbreaking Path of Grief, which is also on my reading stack. But yeah, I just put that in there because I thought it was cute.
It's a brilliant picture, and Caslow has a very good taste in literature, I have to say. And are those Caslow's glasses as well? Does he wear reading glasses?
No, those are this guy's.
Well, we could be naughty and say that since David's not in the chat, that that's the effect that reading his book has on most people. But we won't say that. We won't
say that because David might be don't listen.
It's a fascinating book. I'm really enjoying it, but it is taking me a while to get through. Partly because the font is very small and my eyes are very bad, so just read little bits at a time.
Yeah, it is very small. I think one of the most powerful things of this book is where he talks about speciesism as an ideology rather than a prejudice, and I think that that is a major kind of advance, if you like, even over and above Ryder, who coined the word, obviously, and then Singer would popularize it. But rather than thinking of it being a prejudice held by individuals, you think of it as an ideology that's kind of imbued and intertwined inside society, institutionalized. Yeah. And I think that's a major advance of thinking about it.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? I mean, it's like the fish in the water. It's just such a part of everything around us that it's kind of hard to tease out what it even is most of the time. I think we're just so embedded. It's just so embedded in everything.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Right, let's.
Interesting question here from Jonah, who says, "Evening all. Evening, Jonah. In a rights-based paradigm, would other animals also bear responsibilities and be punishable for their malfeasances?" Have I said that right? Malfeasances. And how would they be judged, managed, and carried out? And I suppose this goes back to what we might now say is a little bit of a dated concept with Tom Reagan, isn't it? The moral patients, as rights bearers, moral patients are not liable to have those responsibilities, although they are rights bearers in themselves. And it is a really interesting question, isn't it, in terms of rights, where do the rights bearers' responsibilities begin and end? And I suppose that's a really interesting one, because as we've spoken about before, we don't. I don't believe that that other animals are moral patients. I feel that they do have morality of their own, probably different to ours. But then, how do we then navigate these relationships between other animals and humans when we're all trying to coexist? And how do we draw those boundaries? I find that really, really interesting. And
what about children?
Every day,
but we've got the idea in law about criminal responsibility in children, and so children could do certain things when they're infants that we would then not prosecute them criminally, whereas once they get to a certain age, we would, and that's the kind of boundary between moral patient and moral agent, even within human children, right? And I suppose if you think about the other way, you could get someone with Alzheimer's doing something terrible, and you wouldn't then see them as moral agents. You'd see them as moral patients.
Well, my question too would be, and this is a little different way to look at it, is why would it be humans' responsibility to sort of dole out, discipline to someone from a different species in a different culture? I mean, wouldn't that be, in many cases, wouldn't that be up to their own culture and their own group to? Because that does happen. I mean, there's definitely a discipline within groups of non-human animals where they might outcast somebody or do things that humans maybe just would seem super harsh even to us if they don't participate in that culture in a way that they're seen to be, it's seen to be their responsibility.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's a hard one.
I agree with Mychael with it, this one, because we know that other animals have morality. We don't know what their rules are. And we cannot know the rules for every species, even if we manage to understand basic stuff about certain species. Why should we be like the keykeepers of these kingdoms and decide for everything? If it is a real a community, interspecies community based on equality, that's not our role.
It's a tricky one. You remember I used to say, well, one of the things that I talk about a lot, obviously, is Reagan's appearance in 1989 in the British Institute, but that was part of something called Arena Animal Night, which went all the way through on BBC Two in England when there was only 2 channels. Apparently there's 1 million people watching. But one of the programs before the actual debate was about animal trials. And we did put other animals on trial at one point. And we also appointed human criminal representatives for them. And so there's some monks who had sued some mice for damaging their property in terms of nicking their wheat or whatever. And then the mice countersued as prior possession of the land. And so there was all kind of really interesting stuff going on. So maybe funny enough, if that came back, which obviously I'm not advocating, but if it did, it would really make us think differently about other animals in that sense. But who was there first? Whose land is this anyway? It's like vegans debating about chickens and backyard eggs and this kind of stuff, and about who owns the eggs and all the rest of it, isn't it? It's quite interesting.
I think it comes down to, again, sort of really trying to dismantle human supremacy all the time, doesn't it? Whatever we talk about, because if we're going to have interspecies communities that do consider other animals as having equal moral value and being important and valued in their own right, then we have to really break down the very, very that it's such a strong, insidious paradigm, the human supremacy, that most people just naturally feel and behave that way without even realizing that that's the way they think. And I think that has to be our thing that we really try to break down more than anything, is trying to undercut we are superior, that we are supreme, that we are the exceptional beings of the planet, and everyone else is just beneath us in this hierarchy. And I think that's going to be the struggle.
Indeed. So, Mychael,
on that little bombshell.
Yeah, your last and easiest question is: so, building strong communities in pursuit of a vegan world. Go, off you go. How do you do that?
Well, just to kind of tie it together, and I think we did talk a little bit about this last time, but to me, it's, well, I'll say, like, I was thinking about you, all the people on this panel. I've never met you in real life. I've just met you through social media or, chats, things like that. And that's true with a lot of people for me who I've become friends with over time in the vegan community. And I just, I just think that there's, because I've been like admins for groups where, people are trying to become vegan or interested in becoming vegan, and they come on and they say, like, I don't know there's no vegans around here. And so it's just, I feel like it's such a great time for us to develop a community that's outside of our immediate town that we're living in or something like that. Because it is important. I mean, people are human beings are like social creatures. We really, most of us do really rely on other humans. We're very, very connected. And so, I just think there's a lot, and we talked about a little bit about it in the first episode, but I just think that, there's so many ways to reach out and to help others, to have an ethic of care for others within our community, or to just develop a community in the first place, whether it's just, starting a local Facebook group, a vegan Facebook group where you are, reaching out to people across the world. And, when you meet somebody, like, all you people are so cool to me, and I'm so happy that I'm able to get to know you, where there's no way that I would have maybe 15, 20 years ago. And so, I don't know. I don't know if that helps answer the question, but it is a big question. But I do think that community within when you're trying to do anything as a human, it does help to have a community. And I think to be friends with other vegans and be in a community with other vegans is really helpful to thriving as vegans and also staying vegan. I have a fly that's lived in this house. Speaking of animals living around me, this fly is like the oldest fly, I think, in the world. He's been in my house for like 6 days now. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I've tried to like shoo him out the door and it just doesn't work. He's like, nope, I'm staying here.
It's cold outside, that's why.
Yeah.
I call them little jet pilots. I love flies. I think they're amazing. Everyone just tries to kill them. But they're like little flies are amazing. The way they
are amazing.
I learned a lot about how they navigate the world, how they see, and how they can just take off, and the way they sort of somersault and everything. They're incredible. They're literally little jet pilots. They're amazing.
Yeah, I think the military have studied them because they wanted to try and see if we can get machines to do that kind of thing, flip over and land upside down and all the rest of the things. Yeah, I mean, we can't come close to what they can do.
No, they're amazing.
I know we're hitting right up against the edge of our time here, Roger. I hope I answered that question at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because my answer would be to develop the grassroots, I suppose, really. And I think we probably all agreed with that. Whether that involves challenging the prevailing power structure is another matter. I'm not quite sure how the one can be done without the other, really. But that's probably for another time and possibly contentious too. So it's difficult though when you've got a movement which could do with finances and resources spread evenly across it. And that has never happened in our movement. It's always been drawn to particular power centers and now to some particular powerful individuals as well. So, that is an issue. And the caveat there is that obviously money is not the entire thing, but it does help. But that's another argument, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll say again that you and Ronnie, among other people in this movement, have really influenced me to think more in terms of grassroots and not having to rely on some of these bigger organizations. Just doing a sort of DIY stuff. Just like, okay, anybody can go down to their local park or whatever and talk to people. You don't have to be part of any group to do that, but it does help to have at least a small group of people that want to do that together, I think.
I don't know what you all think about this idea, but sorry, you're going to say something back, Roger, to Mychael.
No, I was just going to say that Michael's fly is now taking a starring role in the show. There,
like I'm going to be on this show.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking about the whole in terms of like grassroots and community and interspecies communities. Something that keeps coming to my mind, and I don't know how it would look or anything, but it's just an idea that I have in terms of people like us doing something like putting out a newsletter that would literally involve stories or situations or whatever about other animals in the community. Because like, for example, at the end of my road, there's a crow family who live there, and I see them all the time, and I literally am mesmerized by them, and I watch them come and go. I watch them in the tree where they live. I watch them gathering twigs and stuff for when they're nesting. I watch them gathering food, and they're just absolutely unbelievable. And I feel like they're my neighbors, but yet most people will just walk past and not even know that they have this crow family at the end of the street who are our neighbors. And just simple things like that. I often wonder if it might be something positive to bring out some kind of newsletter that would actually bring these individuals into our community, that people would be aware of them and maybe look out for them. And in terms of around here, we have a lot of fox people, families, and I know people are often quite negative about foxes, but actually I've been quite surprised recently on a Nextdoor app, which is like just a local community app. People have been really positive about foxes, and I'm just thinking, that would be really great to sort of tell some of these stories that are going on with the foxes. And I don't know if anyone else here does anything like that or has seen anything like that, how that might look.
It could be dangerous. It could be dangerous though, Wendy. I mean, I used to see foxes, and I know where they live, but I've never revealed it, because you're going to get somebody trotting along and trying to kill them,
Yeah, I know that had crossed my mind as well. I suppose it's that balance, isn't it? Or the two sides of the coin or whatever.
Yeah, I'd say so. It would definitely be a risk anyway, certainly.
It just seems like everything we do, all of our news, all of our, whenever we report deaths or events in the community, it never involves anyone other than humans. And it really saddens me. I suppose it's coming from that place, really.
It's funny that you mentioned Nextdoor, because I before you even mentioned Nextdoor, I thought of Nextdoor when you were talking, because it seems like mostly on my Nextdoor, all people do is talk about how dangerous all the coyotes and everybody else around here is, and keep your animals in. I saw a coyote, and keep your little dog safe. And there's I think there's a place for us to go on. I mean, that's great. I'm really happy and heartened to hear that people are talking positively about other animals on your Nextdoor. But to me, it seems like a place where you could go in and gently, introduce some ideas about other animals that most people are not introducing. Most people are just introducing animals as these sort of problems and pests and getting in the way of us wanting to live our lives the way we want to live them, and keep chickens in our backyards and things like that. What do you think, Nella?
I was thinking that there is a cat living outside our building. It's a building with a lot of apartments, and she's very friendly, and she has this personality, and really attractive personality, and she has managed to change people's views about cats. I realized lately that even those that didn't like cats have actually taken interest in her, and in a way they're trying to make sure that she's okay. which is great. But
jet pilots coming.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. I don't know
Sorry.
what I wanted to say. Oh, don't go, don't worry. Will come to me.
About the cat.
Yes,
And
sometimes
perhaps-
I see examples of other of individuals playing a role like that, and other times, even if you report some other animal doing something extraordinary and amazing, people will stick to their ideas. I mean, oh, this animal is in the pest category, for example, and should be exterminated, no matter how cool they are or what you say. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get people to change their mindset about other animals, isn't it? I'm just aware, obviously, we're kind of coming to time, but I think Tim had a question for Mychael. I'm wondering whether because it might be quite a big question. This is the question:
Yeah,
do we go there now, or do we?
I just scroll
does
back to
Mychael
it.
maybe try to answer this in the
two-parter, isn't it? It is quite complicated. This in the sense that
two-parter. Oh yeah, I was just.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether he means, like a conflict from outside of the community or within it. So, Mychael, every community I've known since squatting in London in 1980 has faced conflict. Indeed, it could be said, that the strength of a community lies in how it deals with conflict. What's your advice? A big question to end with.
That's a really big question. I know, I mean, right away, what comes to mind for me is that I have had to walk away from some communities because it just was not worth the torment, of being a part of it. But I can't remember what book it might have been nonviolent communication. But there was an idea that people would come together and kind of, if there was a conflict within a community, which I think the communities that maybe the communities that Tim is talking about are maybe communities where people are actually living together. But I think this could go out into all sorts of, different types of communities, whether you live together or work together. But I think getting together and just talking things out, and also realizing that there might be a time when you kind of have to walk away for a couple of days, come back and try to work it out again. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to answer this question very well, but I think that, nonviolent communication in particular seems like a very good strategy to me. And something I'm trying to learn more about and practice myself. And it has to do with just talking to a lot of this has to do, it's sort of like golden rule type stuff, just talking to people the way you would want to be talked to, and maybe having the group get together and kind of try to work some things out. And when you get to a point where you're realizing that you're butting heads, or things aren't really going the way that you would like them to go, maybe taking a step back and saying, let's do this again in 2 or 3 days and come back together, at whatever prescribed time everybody agrees to. Man, it's a huge question, Tim. I appreciate the question, and I'll have to think on that a lot more. And I do think that maybe we could have a whole other show just on that.
And you could maybe reply more, Mychael, in the comments afterwards if you had time to think about it and come back on that. Yeah, don't put a link. I suppose as well, just while you were saying that, what came to my mind as well with conflicts within communities is having accountability as well. That if there's no accountability within a community, then there's no way of, I guess, resolving these things, is there? We have to kind of make each other accountable, not in a kind of, not just retribution, but in terms of we're accountable to each other and to ourselves in the way that we uphold our value systems, I guess. That would be just a thought that came to me while you were saying that.
Yeah, and I might have mentioned this last time, but it seems to me like before you get into a situation where you're in any kind of community with others, that you would kind of work a lot of the details out beforehand. Not that it's going to always be obviously stuff's going to come up that you didn't think about beforehand, but for instance, like just a small group that goes out and does, vegan advocacy. It seems to me like it would be a good idea to get together with the group beforehand and really discuss some things that might be important to each individual that, we either are going to do or we're not going to do, and try to kind of get those down before you end up in this community. I almost joined I didn't never squatted, but I did almost join a commune one time, and I thought a lot about it, and I had my grandma, who was a very dear person to me. I brought the whole thing to her, the ideas that I had about this place and the booklet that they had as describing the way they do things. And she read the whole thing and she came back and said, I like everything here, but one thing I don't like is that they said something in there about our only contact with the outside world is to teach, preach, and something else. It was like they were really kind of secluding themselves, and I guess my grandmother being a part of my community at that time was really important to me. And it helped me to, I think, sometimes taking the ideas that you have about building a community and sort of running them through some party someone you trust and who can help you kind of sort things out is another good thing. But yeah, if I think of anything else, I'll definitely write in the comments later. It's a big question and a good one.
Yeah, there's a couple of good sociology books about communes, but they tend to collapse because of strains over sexual relations. That's usually the main problem. So anyway, with that, we shall thank Mychael one more time for coming along, and thanks for all your insights, Mychael. And
thank you so much, Mychael. Really appreciate it. Another day off work for you today.
Right. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate the invites to come on here, and I just really am so grateful that you all are in this world with me.
And also, Mychael, you had some problem commenting on the comment section of the first one. So if anybody asked Mychael a question and it wasn't answered, it was not because Mychael ignored it. It was the fact that there was some kind of glitch. So I just thought I'd throw that out there just in case. Okay. Right. So thanks, everyone, and take care, everyone. And we shall see you again.
See you again.
Right, cheers.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.